Okay. Welcome everybody. Thanks so much for spending some time with us this early evening. My name is Nam Nguyen. I'm from the Office of Graduate Studies and Research. I am thrilled to have Dr. Carmen Mitchell, our University Scholarly Librarian, join us today to walk you all through the closing steps of filing your thesis or your project. And at the end, we can answer any questions as well as any wrap-up items when it comes to your file being closed out and your degree being conferred. So without further ado, I am happy to pass it on to Dr. Carmen Mitchell.
Hi everyone, Carmen Mitchell here, and I'm happy to speak with all of you. I wanted to give it just a minute because folks are still trickling into the room. So if you wouldn't mind putting your name and the program that you're in into the chat for me. Um, and one fun question. So librarians, we think about categorizing things and organizing things. And something that comes up from time to time is like what makes a sandwich, right? What makes a sandwich? Is it something between two pieces of bread, something between carbs? So is a hot dog a sandwich? And that's another thing you can put in the chat while we just wait for a few minutes to get everybody in here. Is a hot dog a sandwich in your definition? You can just say yes or no. So for the chat, your name, the program that you're in, and whether or not you think a hot dog is a sandwich. Um, Seeing some great folks here. Uh, some folks say yes, it is a sandwich, and some folks say no, it is not a sandwich. No, a hot dog is not a sandwich. Uh, as you put that into the chat, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I have been on campus for 15 years, and I had a prior career in book publishing before I switched to librarianship. And part of the reason why I switched to librarianship is because I felt like libraries and librarians in general were quicker to adapt to changes in technology and to try out new technology. So I am not like a book reading librarian. I am in my spare time. I love to read, but my job as a librarian is really computers. I'm on computers all the time. Computers is really what I do. So I'm going to walk you through some of the final steps for submitting your thesis or project to the library. And I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about ADA compliance formatting, which is a piece of the process. Why don't I actually start with the ADA compliance formatting first, and then we'll go to the actual submission steps. So can you all see my screen here? Okay, so I'm sharing with you a fake thesis. It is a thesis from my dog Gracie. She's not very, she's smart, but she's not like very book smart. So this is actually using Doggo Ipsum, which is a text generator. Instead of Lorem Ipsum, it's dog related things. So ADA compliance formatting is a requirement not just of our campus, but it's actually a law, and it's a law that the government has strengthened quite a bit. And they're really going to start enforcing certain parameters of the accessibility, the Americans with Disabilities Act, with relation to accessible things online. The unfortunate thing is that the person who used to do the ADA compliance formatting for all of our graduate students left the campus, and with our current hiring freeze and our current budget situation, I'm not able to rehire for that position quite yet. So there's one step in particular, two steps really. I'm going to show you how to create headings for your document because that is very, very important. And actually it'll be easier for you to create a table of contents if you do headings. And I'm going to show you how to do alternative text for any images, charts, or graphs that are in your paper. If you're just like completely overwhelmed and you cannot do this, don't worry. We are going to be, the library, we are going to be sending out all of the files at the very end of the semester after you all have sent them in and I've checked them out. We're going to send them to a company that our Department of Disabled Student Services has worked with, and they will do a ADA compliance check, and anything that you missed, they will go ahead and do the formatting for you. I've just found that it's better if you are the expert with the content in your paper, your thesis and your project. So it is often better for you to do it, but I understand this is really not something that you all are experts in. So jumping in here, I'm hopeful that some of you have actually done headings before. I'm doing this in Word because Word is what I need you to send your paper into the library as. If you're working in Google Docs or Office Libre or a different type of platform for your word processing, then I need you to export it to Word if possible. If you're someone who's working in LaTeX, which is a hypertext markup format, contact me and we will talk about the best way for me to get your paper from you. But so if you are working in Word, there are 3 levels of headings that I want you to think about. Level 1 is the most important level, and that would be the title. Level 2 would be your chapters, and level 3 would be any kind of subheading underneath the chapter level. Now, this is going to create structure in your paper, and part of why this is important is because if someone is using a screen reader, if someone who maybe they can't see the content without assistance, so they are using a screen reader to have the computer read the paper to them, these headings will create structure so that that person can navigate the document without having to go all the way to the very beginning or all the way to the very end. Creating headings will also allow you to auto-generate a table of contents so you don't have to manually create it. And it will allow you to update that table of contents. So I mentioned that heading 1 is going to be the most important heading. And I've highlighted it here. I'm going to click onto the Styles button. And you'll see that my paper, the font in my paper is Times New Roman. And this heading here doesn't match the font that I have in my paper. So in order to make it match, I'm going to right click on it. Oh no, it went away. Womp womp. Apologies. I seem to be having some issues with Word. So I will do this if I can, but I might not be able to. If I'm not able to, then we'll jump to the next thing. I'll show you how to find these instructions on the library's website. Okay, so I got to the style section and I right-clicked on Update Heading 1 to match selection. I'm going to do that, and ta-da! This is now tagged as a Heading 1. And I'm going to do the same thing here with the chapter. I'm going to go to Heading 2, right-click on it, Update Heading to match selection, and then same thing with this button here. I'm going to go, it's going to quit again on me. Heading 3, Update Heading to match selection. So you would do that throughout your paper wherever you have a chapter. Now that we've actually designated them, we can actually just click on it and click Heading 2, because I've already designated that is what the Heading 2 is. Click on it, Heading 2. Oh, actually, this is a Heading 3, but I already selected Heading 2. I'm going to just go ahead and select Heading 3. It's very simple to do this. Once you've changed them to match the font that's in your paper, it can actually go fairly quickly. Okay, so now that I've tagged my paper, I'm going to go back to the top to where I would want my table of contents, and I'm going to click on References. You'll see that Table of Contents is here at the top left of the References tab, and I'll click on Table of Contents, and it's going to give me a couple of different options for styles. I can click the classic, I can do the contemporary, I can do the formal. I like the modern, so I'm going to go ahead and select the modern. Now that I've done that, the table of contents pops up right here. So, which is pretty cool, right? And if you move things around, or if you change the text, maybe you change these and actually have something different instead of chapter 1. Maybe it says some kind of descriptive text. Maybe, so for example, maybe I'm going to change this to Dogs are great. So I've changed that. And if I want to refresh the table of contents, all I have to do is come back, click on this little caret, update table, and bam, dogs are great has already been changed. It said chapter 1 and now says dogs are great. So I see, can we use the references option for the table of contents? Jesse, do you want to elaborate on that? Because I'm not sure I understand.
Hi, yeah, sorry. I just realized references refers to references. I think I don't have my paper in front of me, sorry. And I'm, I just got off work. I know there's another option in there besides table of contents. I think I might have selected one of those. I'm not sure. I don't think it was references, so.
Okay.
Hmm.
There may be multiple ways of finding it. This is just how I have done it, and as I mentioned, I'm I'm not the expert. I know enough to do some things, but Amy, who was here, she was really the expert. You can definitely, if there is another way that you found of navigating to create that table of contents, definitely feel free to use whatever is easiest for you. And if later on, because I know this is kind of springing a lot on you all, at the end of the day, when you are just out of work or you're coming from one thing or another thing, if you're thinking about this at another time, I can always set up a brief appointment. In fact, I did that earlier today with someone from the literature and writing program. We just spent half an hour and they actually went through their document and did some of this just to get used to it. Um, so Google Docs, unfortunately, when you export things from Google Docs, the formatting doesn't always come through. That's one reason why I like to work in Word. And if you do the accessibility formatting in Word, if you import it again to Google Docs, it doesn't always come across. Google Docs has some great tools, but it is, as far as their accessibility formatting, it just isn't as good. SharePoint is a Microsoft product, so if you're doing Word in SharePoint, it might look a little different. I'm using the Word desktop app right now, but it might look a little different, but it should have the same functionality. And let me actually stop sharing this, and I'm going to show you where on the library's website you can find this information. All right. So, okay. So here, let me actually go right to the library's website. So if you click on the Research and Learning tab, you'll see we have this topic here right under Research Guides. It says Subject and Course Guides. If you click on that, it brings you to all of the different library guides. Some of you may have gone here to look for things for your classes. If you type in accessibility, the top result is linked to the document accessibility guide. Now, on this document accessibility guide, there are options for other products, including the Google Suite. I'm going to ask you to work in Word when you are at this point. And the chat just went away. Let me pull the chat up again. So Luke, you mentioned that you were working in Google Docs. What you might want to do is export your paper to Word and just run the accessibility checker on it just to see what happens. Or, keep working in Google Docs and then at the very, very end, plop it into Word, export it to Word, and then do your heading formatting if it doesn't come through. All of you have access to the Microsoft Office suite, by the way. I'm not going to say it's for free because you pay for it with your tuition and fees. But IITS has a website called IITS for You. And on that website, it has all of the different software platforms that you have available to download. Microsoft Office is one of them. The Adobe Creative Suite is another. So if you are thinking like, I don't have that and I'm not going to pay for it, yes, thank you, Nam. Nam went ahead and dropped that link right into the chat. So the IITS for You, you can go and download the Microsoft Suite. Even if you only download it to check your document or to do this final wrap up and then send it in to the library, that would be a good thing. Clicking on the Microsoft Word page, this has the basics, and you see that the very first thing here under the basics is the document structure. Irma, I see your question. We are recording this, and I'm happy for it to be shared with all of the students. So this heading section, it will walk you through step by step what I was showing you, so you don't feel like you have to remember all of that stuff. The other thing that I wanted to show you is how to do alt text for images. And again, the instructions are all here on this document accessibility, and it walks you through step by step. And there are instructions for Macs and PCs. So if you're on a Mac, you're covered. If you're on a PC, you're covered. Okay, now that I've done the really quick document accessibility guide, I'm going to go to the thesis and project submission guide. Okay, so I'm hoping that most of you have seen this, even if you haven't read the whole thing, that you've at least seen it. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but I want to point out a couple of pinch points. The very first one is this deadline. So the spring deadline is May 7th at noon. And part of the reason why it's at noon is just because things happen, right? And it used to be when I first started, it was actually at 5 or 6 o'clock, and then I found myself sitting in an office with a stream of students trying to get things turned in until about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. So it's at noon. I don't turn the form off at noon, but please get it in by noon. I am going to be tracking all of you. I'm going to, in fact, you will be getting reminder emails from me. You'll be getting links to the instructions from me, and those will all start coming your direction probably the middle of the month. I usually don't like to start too early. If you know that you are not going to make that May 7th at noon, maybe you need a day, maybe you need a couple of days, there is the possibility of getting an extension. Extensions are really only for a 1 week period of time. So an extension isn't going to give you months. It's going to give you 1 week max. But that extension request needs to go in through your advisor to the Office of Graduate Studies, and that information's here at the bottom of the page. It's very, very, very important that those extension requests go in before May 7th. Anything that comes in on May 7th or after May 7th is automatically denied. So better to request the extension and not need it than to need the extension and not have it. Any questions about extensions before I go on to, or the deadline before I go on to the next page? I am trying to keep an eye on the chat, but if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand, feel free to speak up, interrupt me, and I can answer it. Okay, I see a couple questions in the chat. When would you recommend to finish defending your thesis by? I actually think you should defend your thesis as early in the semester as possible. That's a conversation you should be having with your thesis chair. Please give yourself at least a couple of days between your defense and the final deadline, just because things happen. There are steps you have to take once you're done. You cannot upload your paper to the library until your committee has signed off on your thesis and they have approved your thesis. So if you're doing your defense on May 6th and your committee wants you to do edits and you have to turn everything in by May 7th, that's just really cutting it really, really close. So make sure to give yourself minimum a few days. In an ideal world, I would like you to defend a week or two if possible, but I know that that's not always a possibility. Maria has a creative thesis. How would you submit this to the library? Can you explain more about that, Maria? You don't have to turn your camera on, but if you could just explain a little bit more about that, then I can answer that question. Okay. Maria, we have lots of creative files in our repository. In fact, that's a good option for me to show you where these are going. And I'll go back to the instructions here in a little bit. But so we have uh, files that have videos that accompany them. We have some that include podcasts. We have some that are, it's a narrative poem with images interspersed. So they're all different types of papers or of files that come in. If you're including multimedia or something that is not a paper, send me an email because we need to plan out how best to archive that. So this is ScholarWorks. This is where your thesis and your project will go. And it is hosted for us by the Chancellor's Office. If we click on dissertations and theses, and then let's limit it to our campus, San Marcos. Looking at file type, you can see that out of the almost 4,500 files that are in here, we have 18 that have videos and 5 that have audio as well. There are some folks who did podcasts, and so for any videos, we need to have them captioned. They have to be sent out to be captioned, and that takes time. Then once those captions come back, you will need to check them for accuracy. If you have a podcast, I need them to have transcripts. Again, if we send them out for transcription, that takes time. So if you have multimedia as a part of your thesis or your project, please send me an email. We'll set up a Zoom appointment and we'll talk through how best to archive your paper or your project or your thesis. If you have a website, if you are using a proprietary platform like Wix or Squarespace, or even your, if you're in the education programs, maybe you have done things in the LMS for the school system that you are working in, we need to talk about how best to archive all of that stuff. Do we have access to Grammarly or Turnitin? No, I don't use Grammarly or Turnitin when I check your paper. So that's not a part of this process. It's doubly with Grammarly's horrible turn to AI. I would not be using it on your paper. AI is a completely different thing. If you're interested in that, we can talk about it later. Nam, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, actually, two things that are related to this and also beforehand. Just to clarify, and I think, and I apologize that I didn't start with this at the beginning for all you folks that are finishing. As you're a master's student or a doctoral student at the CSU, you all are required to do some type of culminating experience. So as you all are finishing your theses or projects, some of you might be doing a comp exam. Everyone who's doing anything other than a comp exam has to submit their final product to the library so that it can be archived through ScholarWorks. So as Carmen was doing a great explanation, even if it's like videos, if it's lessons, it somehow needs to be memorialized so that it could be put into ScholarWorks. The second thing in terms of Grammarly or Turnitin, the archival process is separate than approval of your academic work, which you're producing. So everything that you're producing in your master's program, whether it be a thesis, a project, or portfolio, that is all created by you and approved by your program and your graduate faculty coordinators, your faculty advisor. So Carmen and her team and OGSR, we won't be going in, we won't be doing any approvals, we won't be testing any of your theories, we won't be doing anything like that. That's all in-house through your department. What we're talking about right now with Carmen is how we go ahead and archive that final piece once it's all been approved by your department. So that's kind of the falling back up to Grammarly or Turnitin. If you need assistance when it comes to Writing Center, any of that kind of stuff, more than happy to help guide you in terms of resources. You can shoot me an email and we can talk about that. But for this case, no, we won't be double checking any of the work once you get the thumbs up approval from your committee. Thanks, Carmen.
Yeah, thanks, Dom. And something else to note is that if the document that you send in to me has track changes on, if it has comments still in it, I'm going to send it back to you because I can't accept any of those things. I can't, that is between you and your committee members. So, and I've been seeing that happening on occasion in the semesters where somebody will send in their final paper, but it still has comments and still has unresolved track changes. I'll let you know that I got it, but then I'm going to send it back to you and say, can you please resolve all of these track changes and comments and then send it back to me? Because again, as Nam mentioned, I'm not going to be approving or changing the content of your thesis or your project. So I wanted to show you what something looked like with, so here, this is something that came through in last spring. It is a project. There's a paper portion of it, but then there's also a video. And you see we have different versions of the video. We have a lower resolution streaming, we have a higher resolution, and then we have a transcript for the video. So that's just what it looks like if you have something else in addition to your paper. Okay, I'm going to go back to the submission process, but if there are other questions about ScholarWorks, I'm happy to jump back to that. So here in the submission process, this is where I've got the steps. It's not a hard process, but there are some fiddly details. So just make sure that you're reading all of these instructions. One thing that I'll note is that prior to 2023, the signature pages that came into the library were signed. Your signature pages are still going to be signed. However, the signature page that is signed is just for your department, and it's going to eventually go to OGSR for storage. The one that you send me will be unsigned. In fact, looking at this example that I pulled up, if we look at this PDF for this paper, you'll notice that this signature page does not have signatures on it. Okay, but the departmental signature page goes in as the first page of your paper, and then we go into her actual paper here. Okay, going back to the submission process. So unsigned signature page goes in as page 1. You do have to pay a $25 fee. If you pay that online, I will automatically get a copy of that receipt. I keep track of all of the students going through this process on a spreadsheet. And when I get things like the receipt in my email, I note it in my spreadsheet. If I have you on my list of students that's anticipated to graduate, but if we're getting close to the deadline and I don't see that your receipt has come through, I'll email you and I'll ask you what's going on. There's a Qualtrics form that you will use to upload your final paper. And there are options there for additional files. So if you have a PowerPoint, like for example, our biotech students, they upload an executive summary in a PowerPoint. So you can actually upload multiple things, but only one of each type of file. So if you, for example, have multiple appendices that are PDFs that you need me to merge in to your paper at the very end of the process, you will need to email me and we'll figure out the best way to get those PDFs to me. If you have something that's very large, for example, like if you have a video and it is quite large, the Qualtrics form sometimes will time out with large files. I have a SharePoint folder that I have available for students that have multimedia or large files to send in. So if you let me know, hey, I've got this thing, it's probably going to be too big for the Qualtrics form, I'll share that SharePoint folder with you and you can put the files there and then I can snag them. If you're working with a group, you only have to upload one version of your paper. Each person in that group will be listed on the signature page as an author. Each student, however, is still responsible for paying the $25 fee. Once I get all your materials in, I have about a week to process everything and to double check on things. I process them in the order that they came in. Once I have accepted your file, I will send you a confirmation email and I will include the link to the paper that is the handle. And if you look at this, you'll notice that the handle here is different than the URL that's at the top of the page. This is very specific. It's because we pay for a service to maintain these handles over time. It's what's known as a uniform resource identifier. If when you were doing the research for your thesis or your project, you saw things like DOIs for journal articles, a handle is similar to a DOI. A DOI is a uniform resource identifier, and a handle is a uniform resource identifier. So that's what I'll be sending back to you when I confirm that your paper has been accepted. That's the thing that you should include if you want to link to it in LinkedIn, or if you want to put a link in your CV. It's something that if we change software platforms for ScholarWorks over time, which we have done 3 times since I have been in the system, that handle will remain persistent over time, even if we change to a different software platform. All right, going back to the instructions, I have some signature page templates here if you need them. Keep in mind that you should check first with your advisor or your committee members, because some programs will help you with creating the signature page. And I wanted to point out the frequently asked questions tab. If I've gotten a question multiple times, I have added it and my answer to this frequently asked questions page. One of the questions that I get from time to time is, what do I do if I have confidential or proprietary information in my thesis or my project? For some programs like computer science, biological sciences, sometimes even folks in education or other programs, they'll have something where either they want to monetize it, they want to patent it, they are interested in publishing about it. What I would ask is that you have a good conversation with your thesis or project committee chair, your primary advisor, to make sure that you're on the same page as to what you want done with that. For most papers, we will place an embargo if there is information that needs to be kept out of the general public. Placing an embargo will restrict the access to your paper for either 1 year or 3 years. For folks who are considering sending it in for publication, or maybe you're putting it in for a competitive grant, then we will want to restrict the access. Restricting the access means that someone would have to log into ScholarWorks using their CSUSM username and password to access the content. Keep in mind, if you are placing an embargo, however, all of the metadata will still be publicly available. So your name, the title, the abstract, those will all still be publicly available. Someone would just have to, they would have to log in to the system in order to download the PDF or to see any of the files attached to your paper. If you have things that are like really confidential, cybersecurity, maybe you have tested some exploits to some security systems and you have provided examples. We can do character string replacements if there are things that absolutely should be 100% confidential and not included. If you have something that you're wanting to patent, again, character string replacements, calling something product A, product B, not including the full code. So we should definitely talk about that. If you have questions about this, please let me know. I'm always happy to meet with you, and even your advisor or your thesis chair if they also have questions. So again, there's all this information here. Again, there's information about the proprietary information, embargo periods. Something to keep in mind with those embargoes is that they are renewable. So if you have requested a 1-year embargo because you're submitting your paper to a journal for potential publication, maybe that journal takes a long time to get the peer review done. It's happened before. So maybe it takes them 18 months and you still don't want this to be publicly available. Just email me, let me know, hey, I had a 1-year embargo on my paper. I actually need to change that to a 3-year, or I need to renew it for another year. Totally simple for me to handle. You just have to email me and let me know. All right, I think that's it for the instructions. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a little bit and give folks a chance to ask questions. Nam, did I miss anything?
Karen, maybe if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the signature page as it relates to when they put in their defense states. I know sometimes we get some questions on that.
Yep, that's a good point. So part of this whole process is that you are expected to have a defense. A defense is normally required, and that's part of the actual educational code. So if you are doing a project, still there is normally a defense required. For some programs, the defense is actually when you present your project to your committee. Sometimes that is a video defense that you record and then send to your committee. Have a conversation with your committee members about, because do you consider the video that you recorded the date, or do you consider the date that they watched the video? So just make sure, for most folks, it's going to be the date that you do the presentation or the date that you formally have the meeting for the defense. But since we have so many different programs, just make sure that you understand with your committee members what it is that is considered the defense date, because that goes in on your signature page. And it's also something that I will ask you. Sometimes someone will send a paper in, and in their Qualtrics form that they filled out, they put their defense date, and it is actually for a date in the future. And they're already sending me their paper. And if that happens to you, what I will do is I will email you and say, hey, I have a question. I saw you uploaded your thesis or your project, but you say that the defense date is on May 30th. May 30th is after our deadline. Can you tell me what's going on? And we'll have to talk about it and come up, make sure that we are all on the same page. You should not be sending your paper into the library until after that defense has been completed. So if you're doing a video defense that you're sending to your committee members, you need to make sure that they have gotten, that they approve it and that there are no changes before you send in your paper to the library.
Luke wants to know how he can request an embargo.
Okay, thanks for that, Luke. So the embargo is something that you can select in that Qualtrics form when you upload your final paper. You should be talking with your thesis chair or your project advisor about the embargo prior to selecting it, because your chair or your advisor has to approve of the embargo. For some folks, the request for the embargo will come from your chair or your primary advisor. Maybe you're using a data set that they're still doing a lot of research with, and maybe they want to restrict access to the results that you've included in your paper until they can finish doing further experiments. In the spreadsheet that I send to all of the members of the Graduate Studies Council, all the faculty after everything is done, I will have in that spreadsheet the embargoes that have been requested and the length of time, whether it's 1 year or 3 years. And so they will see it. And there have been instances in the past where a student has requested an embargo when their advisor explicitly told them not to, and vice versa, where the advisor has asked the student to request an embargo and the student didn't indicate that. So this is a way, the tracking spreadsheet is really how we do our quality control checks, if you will. So let me see here. Alex says, after the defense is done and signed off, we send the ADA version to the library, not via email, through the Qualtrics link in the instructions. So let me go ahead and I'll put that link in the chat. So here's the actual, that's the link to the specific page in the instructions that has the Qualtrics form. I'd like all of you to spend 20 to 30 minutes at some point in time in the next couple of weeks reading over those instructions, because like I said, I didn't read them you all are smart. You got into these programs, you know how to read. I just was really touching on some of the highlights. If the defense date is after the deadline, oh yes, request the extension, but also remind your chair that the thesis deadline is May 7th. There really shouldn't be any defenses happening after May 7th. It really should be happening before the deadline. especially when we have a month in advance to change it. So speak to them and make sure that they understand that the deadline is always the last Thursday of the semester. It's been that way for years and years. It doesn't change, but just make sure that they understand that that is the day.
There
And I'm
may
happy.
Oh,
Yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
Carmen.
Go ahead, Nam.
There may be some of you joining us this evening who are finishing in summer, which is awesome. We wanted to catch you all. So if you're finishing in summer, just a reminder, the deadline is August 6th. So if your defenses are after August 6th, same thing. You're going to want to try to move it up before August 6th. And if it's not, it's such a tight turnaround time, you're going to want to try to get an extension.
Yeah. Other questions? Oh, Luke, about the defense date, if you're graduating in the summer and your defense is after May 8th, as long as it's before August 6th, if you're graduating in the spring, you should definitely speak to your advisor or your committee chair to see about moving it to before. Defense dates should be before May 7th. They really should. I mean, yes, you can request the extension, but defenses should happen before the deadline. Sybil, I see you've got your hand up. Can you go ahead?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I have a question. You had mentioned the PDFs, but I really didn't catch it and understand it. So my question is, I have made a presentation on Canva, which can be converted to a PDF. How would I include this in my project?
Canva is really, really, really difficult to make ADA compliant.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell me what program are you in?
Special education.
Okay, I think I'm coming to see all the special education folks on Thursday. So
Okay.
we can talk about it a little bit more, but yeah, it's really, really hard to make some of those Canva exports accessible. So we can we can cover it more in that meeting, or you and I can actually set up a separate meeting where we actually look at those pages
Okay.
and see about how best to handle that.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you.
Sure thing. Other questions?
I have a question. To set up an appointment with you,
Mm-hmm.
email you, or do you have a link that we use?
Go ahead and email me if in that email, since we are already having this conversation here in this space, send me an email and in that email include a few times that you're available. I would say usually anywhere between 3 and 5 times that you're available for a brief meeting. It's okay if it's in the evening. I understand that folks have a lot going on. And I'll compare your availability with the times that I am available. I'll try to find a time that works for both of us, and then I'll send you a Zoom link.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Should we talk a little bit about, I know this is not going to happen for any of you all, but let's say this happens for somebody you know that they don't have an extension request on file by the deadline and they don't submit and they want to graduate in spring. What happens?
I'm sorry. Yeah, if you miss the deadline and you don't have an extension, you will need to enroll in a 1 credit course for the next semester. It's unfortunate. It does sometimes happen. This is also where I will say, when you upload your paper to the library or when you send in your materials to the library, don't stop checking your email. Please don't stop checking your email, because there have been situations in the past where somebody sent something in. I had questions for them. They were off on vacation thinking that they had completely done everything, and they weren't able to graduate because they never responded to my email, and we couldn't get things sorted out. I want to do everything I can to help support you to make this process as low stress as possible, but I need you to keep checking your email, because if you miss the deadline, or if there is a problem with your paper, I can't process it without the complete materials. There was once where somebody actually sent in the totally wrong thing. There was another time where somebody had an old draft of something, and I can't accept that, and I can't put that into ScholarWorks. So it does happen sometimes where folks have to enroll in the 1 credit course. I believe for most programs it's a 699 course, and that's something that NOM and OGSR can help you with. But you have to be a matriculated student in order to finish and to graduate. And actually, this is a question that just came in through the chat. So, do you have to enroll in a course if you plan to submit your thesis during the summer? You have to be enrolled when you plan to submit. So, if you're planning on submitting this spring, you have to be an enrolled student. If you're planning on submitting in the summer, you have to be an enrolled student. You can't finish a semester and then submit your paper later on. Unfortunately, that's just not the process that we have. Other questions?
Maybe I can take a minute or two to talk about next steps afterwards, and then if questions pop up, we can go ahead and answer them that way. Is that okay, Carmen? Okay, great. So as Carmen said, once you successfully defend or get the approval, you upload to the library, and Carmen sends you a confirmation, which can take a couple of days. Just keep in mind, if you upload tonight, don't expect an automatic response that it was confirmed. It can take a couple of days, especially as we get closer to your deadline, whether it be the spring or summer deadline. But after the ETD deadline happens, after the 1 week extension deadline passes, Carmen and her team, and really it's Carmen, Carmen sends a report to all of the graduate coordinators, all the graduate faculty coordinators for each of the programs, with a list of all the students who have successfully submitted their thesis or project. At that time, your graduate coordinators can then go in to your academic requirements report and mark that you have completed your culminating experience. So if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say your academic requirements report, this is a really good opportunity for you all to go into your Student Services Center, click on the ARR report, academic requirements, and take a look at it. I'm going to go ahead and put it here if you need a guide. It's essentially your degree progress report. So during your final semester, whether it be this spring or summer, when you pull your ARR, everything should be either green or yellow. Yellow means it's pending, with the exception of your milestone of your culminating experience one. So that's your thesis or your project being marked off. Once your graduate coordinator gets that list from Carmen, they can go ahead and mark that off. And then that means your file is set. That means if everything is green and yellow, you pass your grades, your classes, your final classes for spring or summer, you're going to be in queue to be having your degree conferred, or at least reviewed for conferral. So for spring grades are official May 29th. For summer, final grades are official August 20th. What that means is if you're graduating this spring, grades will be posted May 29th. If you've applied to graduate for spring and it says after May 29th, your file will then go into queue for the registrar's office. That will take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks for them to review your degree or your file, and then they will confer your degree. Conferring your degree and getting your diploma sent is completely separate. So when your degree is conferred, that means, woo, you're done. You have earned your Master's of Science, your Master's of Arts, Master's of Public Health, Master's of so be it in whatever program that you're in. That's your degree conferral. 6 to 8 weeks after that degree conferral date, that's when your transcript or your diploma will be mailed to you. Okay. So I know some of you are like, okay, I can't wait 4 to 6 weeks after the semester ends because I'm waiting on a job or I'm going to start a doctoral program. For those instances, you can go ahead and submit an urgent graduation review request, but those can only be processed after grades are official, and if you have documentation showing that you have like a job offer pending, or if you are waiting to get final transcripts for your doctoral program, etc. So that's kind of the general timeline and when your files are closed out. If for some reason, when you pull your academic requirements reports and there's red on there and you're like, no, I definitely finished these requirements, you're going to want to contact your faculty graduate coordinator first. It could be that they just need to do some course substitutions or something of that matter. So don't freak out yet. Just reach out to them, and more chances than not, they'll connect with me and then we can resolve it. So go ahead and make sure you're checking that to ensure that everything's all cleared. But other than that, I think that's really the final wrapping point. And then commencement happens. So hopefully you all have registered to attend commencement if you can. Let's see here. Any questions about final file stuff, degree conferrals? Does that mean our official transcripts will be available? Well, your official transcripts showing your grades, like your final grades for spring, will be available after May 29th. But it won't say that your degree is conferred until 4 to 6 weeks after grades are due. So you're looking at early July. How do you register to attend commencement? Okay, I am going to put a link in the file. For everyone who applied to graduate for spring 26 and summer 26, you should have gotten an email from an organization called TASSEL, TASSEL, to register for commencement. If not, go ahead and if you did not get that, I'm going to put the commencement link here, and you can go ahead and contact the commencement team so they can push out the registration link for you again. Any other questions?
Hey, Nam, I noticed when I was scrolling through the chat as you were speaking, I noticed that there are a few folks from the MBA programs here. And I wanted to make sure and mention for we're speaking in generalities here because we have such a large group, but certain programs have special requirements, and the MBA programs are two of those programs. So for folks in the MBA programs, you will be sending into the library this signature page and your executive summary, and that is it. That is it. Nothing more. You will not include the full report, the signature page and the executive summary. In fact, I believe that the MBA program may even have a template available for you to use. Biotech, it is signature page, executive summary, and PowerPoint slides. Everyone else, it is supposed to be the complete project. So just if you have questions or if you're thinking like, gosh, she's speaking about things in a way that is different than how my faculty advisor has been speaking about things, ask me, ask your chair. We can definitely figure it out. But I just wanted to make sure to mention that since I saw some MBA folks here. Other questions?
Okay, I think if we don't see any other questions, what we'll end up doing is tomorrow we'll send everyone this recording. We'll also include links to the library's checklist that Carmen sent, as well as links to all the documents that she shared. We're gonna put big and bold the deadline to submit your thesis or project for spring and summer, as well as a deadline if you need to submit a extension request. I will say, if you are thinking about an extension request, don't just say, I need an extension request without a cause. It's got to be, I need an extension request because my committee member is traveling or something that's substantial, not just like I just need a buffer for a week. So if you're thinking about getting extension requests, just make sure that there is some kind of rationale behind it. So we'll go ahead and send all that stuff out to you all tomorrow. And I put Carmen's email in the chat if you need to schedule an appointment with her. I will also put my email in the chat if you need to contact me for any reason. But other than that, I think we are good to go. Congratulations, y'all. You're almost there. It's so close. We're so excited for you all. We know it's a lot of work and it's a huge lift, especially this time of the semester and coming up for summer. So congrats, congrats, congrats. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. And I am going to be running away to go and meet with the cybersecurity cohort. So have a wonderful evening and email me if you have any questions. Thanks, Nam. See you
Thank you.
later.